This is Eli, aka Devoted Day Trader. On today's recap, I'm gonna talk about how I used the triple bottom to buy BABA and capture a nice move. I also traded DELL, which lowered its full year guidance, which gave me a nice short. I also traded DE, which was a small loser. So let's get to the trades. So BABA is my last trade actually. In fact, I'm still in this trade. I already locked in profit at 199.26. So why did I trade BABA? BABA was in play because the stock had a massive day yesterday. So if we look on the daily chart, it moved by about 6 points yesterday because I believe it IPO'd in Hong Kong, and yeah, so I guess meaning that the stock or the shares are now available to be bought in Hong Kong. At least that's the way I read the news. But it had a massive day yesterday on the daily chart, and if we look to the left on the daily chart, it was above resistance when the stock opened this morning. And what I saw was it started pretty strong in the open, but it sold off to the 200 moving average. This 200 moving average is key. I noticed that it made a triple bottom right at the 200 moving average, which is acting as a zone in this case. So one bottom, two bottom, third bottom, so that's a triple bottom. And when it moved higher, I went long, but I did put my stop at the low of day because I figured this sell-off right here told me that it could potentially test low of day again or test the 200. So I wanted to give my stock room to breathe because I don't want to get stopped out. And yeah, it went in my direction. It did consolidate here, but it was around above VWAP. It kept holding VWAP, and I took my first partial when I noticed that it was struggling at the $0.50 resistance at 199.50. It did not even get to 199.50. It got as high as 199.46. So I just wanted to lock in profit just to be sure. So I locked in 75% of my position here, and I'm gonna let the rest 25% of my position ride. It's probably gonna top out at 200. I'm gonna see how it's gonna behave once it gets to 200. But my final target for my partial is if you can see this red triangle right here. I have a limit order to sell my position at 201.46. So that's where I plan to take off the trade. I may take it off at 200. I'm gonna see how the stock behaves when it gets to 200. So that was the trade on BABA. Really proud of it. The key was the triple bottom off the 200. My second trade was on DELL. DELL was a nice short. So DELL technology, they lowered their full year guidance, meaning that their quarterly earnings is not going to be as profitable as they hoped. So what I saw was we moved up in the open despite the stock being down about, I believe, 4 or 5%. And I noticed that we rejected, well, let me go to the 2 minute. So on the 2 minute, that's the time frame that I use to trade. So on the 2 minute, again, this 200 moving average is now acting as resistance, and there's this topping tail right next to the 200 moving average, and then this topping tail and this 200 resistance was followed by more sell-off. We got below VWAP. I went short with the break of VWAP as my stop. It dropped. I took 75% of my position off at close to 50 because of this 50, which is a psychological support, and also a level from the daily chart. This 50 level seemed to be holding, so I took my partial there, and then it did drop, but I was hoping or waiting for it to get to 49, and if it trends to about 48.85, these are levels that I found on the daily chart. And it bounced off this 50 level, and on 25% of my shares I was stopped out pretty much for close to break even on the 25%, but on the 75% of my shares, so this was a very profitable, a nice trade. So happy to end green on the name. I should have taken off the remaining of my position maybe here, because this drop right here was on high volume, and this was stopping volume. So when it drops like this, so when the volume is really high on the end of a trend, that means most likely it's going to reverse, and that's what it did. I was hoping that VWAP and the 50 moving average could act as resistance and it would sell off, but it moved higher. But I want you to see the power of the 200 moving average. It tested the 200 once again, and it sold off. This would have been a nice place to go short, but I can't take more than 3 trades, so I do not want to chase this. But we have a double top with at the 200. This is a high odds short. You could have went short here, and then let this thing trend. I did have a loser on Deere. They are a farming manufacturing company, and they lowered their guidance because they are being affected by the China tariffs. And in the open, the stock was down about 4% or so. And once it opened weak with this red bar, I went short. My plan was to get to the 200 moving average on the daily chart. That was the thinking. But once it popped up, I stopped out. And yeah, and it did move higher. But again, look at the 200 on the 2 minute. The 200 on the 2 minute doesn't play games. Once it got closer to the 200, it sold off. I know the mistake that I made on this trade. I shouldn't have took this short here, because we were very close to pre-market low, and pre-market low has been holding. So I should have waited to see how it was going to react at pre-market low before I took the trade. So we'll see if BABA reaches 200 or not today. These were the trades. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below. And happy holidays to those who celebrate Thanksgiving. And I'm gonna most likely trade on Friday, so I will most likely do a recap on Friday. And if I don't trade on Friday, I will do a trade next week. Have a good day. Peace.